Now, it's fair to say that the relatively swift fall from grace of Bo Xilai, one of China's most high-profile and certainly prominent politicians, has gripped the nation's interest over the past number of weeks. Now, China's official news agency Xinhua says the former commerce minister and party chief of Chongqing has been suspended from his position on the Communist Party's Central Committee and as one of the 25 members of its powerful Politburo, while he's being investigated for what it calls serious discipline violations. Even more dramatically, Xinhua also reported that Bo's wife, Bo Xilai, and a family aide had been transferred to judicial authorities on suspicion of intentional homicide. Now, this refers to the death of a British businessman, Neil Haywood, who was discovered dead in his Chongqing hotel room in November last year. Bo has not been seen since he was dismissed from his position as Chongqing party chief in mid-March. This came some weeks after a strange incident in which his former police chief, Wang Lijun, visited a nearby US consulate and stayed there for 24 hours. After he left, he was taken to Beijing, where he is being investigated. Bo and Wang were behind a much-publicised campaign to root out organised crime in Chongqing, called Smash the Black, and this gained them much support, it has to be said, amongst many rank-and-file Chinese in Chongqing and right across the country. But it was criticised by others who said police ignored due legal process and even resorted to violence and, in some cases, torture. Now, after Bo's dismissal, an opinion piece in the People's Daily warned that whoever has broken the law will be handled in accordance with the law and will not be tolerated, no matter who is involved. So how do Chinese net users feel about this bizarre chain of events? While much has been censored online, and official news has of course been closely controlled, most Chinese people are aware of the basic facts as reported. In addition, they've been subject to a deluge of rumour and speculation, online and otherwise. Well, to find out what they make of it all, let's cross over to our researcher Julia Liu in the newsroom. Okay, Julia, strange times indeed. Huge interest in this story in the foreign media, of course. And as we mentioned, those Xinhua reports and the People's Daily and various other editorials have been widely republished here. After all, strict control of the news is a priority for the government in China. So how much of it is getting through?
Well, I was interested too, so I did a little digging around earlier to see what I could find. In fact, many big news websites, including Sina.com, Sohu.com, and iPhone.com, have all carried the reports by Xinhua. And since then, there have been several editorials on the major media and newspapers, such as the People's Daily, the China News Daily, and so on. And all of them carry basically the same message. This is that the country should be unified, and this is an important time to rally around the government. And the PLA Daily, the newspaper from the military, carries this article which says the army strongly supports the decisions of the party and the central government too. And there have also been an unusual large number of interviews with government officials from various cities, in particular Chongqing, where Bo Xilai used to head up the government. These all emphasize their support for the party and the government. There are also TV and newspaper reports which carry interviews with Chongqing citizens. The general line is that they are shocked by the developments, but remain supportive of the central government. So basically, that's the sort of message that's being put across at official level. Now, when I try to find less official information online, internet comments and so on, it's a lot harder. But when I try to enter the name Bo Xilai on Baidu.com, that's China's domestic equivalent of Google or Bing, or in Weibo, the microblogging service is something like Twitter. I only get links to official news reports, of which there are many, as I said, and generate information about Bo's past. But comments from individuals are almost impossible to find. And similarly, when I look for comments on Sina.weibo.com, the main microblogging service, virtually all references to non-official news have been deleted.
But I presume at least there's some reaction to be found to that official reporting you mentioned. What about the news that Bo's being investigated for serious disciplinary violations? What's being said about that?
Well, as you mentioned earlier, the People's Daily editorial emphasized that this case was an example of the role of law in China and said that it showed no one can think they are above the law. And it seems that this opinion is also shared by a number of net users. This post from Sohu.com is a typical one example. There is no one who's exempt before the law, and no one can interfere with the implementation of the law. So regarding the case of Bo and his wife, I think the government should stick to the facts, take the law as its standard, and give the public a clear explanation after finishing the investigation. And this poster, 天堂不加班, also agrees with the official line carried in the People's Daily and Xinhua, saying, "It's normal for anybody to expect punishment if he or she breaks the law, and it has nothing to do with who they are. So I don't think there is anything special about this case." And besides these opinions on the case itself, there are also quite a few comments on the restrictions on search and microblogging sites like those I mentioned, Baidu and Weibo. Here's what a frustrated net user called Ben Ben Xiong has to say. I just can't understand what the meaning of restrictions like this is. If they really don't want us to know about this case, then just don't report it. But since they have reported it, why not give us a clear, direct explanation? Is that really so difficult? We are not deaf or blind. Don't always treat us like this. On the other hand, there are also quite a few net users who simply don't care and prefer to concentrate on their own concerns. And this poster, Jellybean109, is one of them. I don't care about this kind of thing. You know, what's most important for me? If prices remain stable and everybody can enjoy a better life, then everything will be okay.
Now, Julia, in recent years, Bo Xilai was probably best known for his Red Storm campaign, these singing songs, showing films that hark back to the glory days of the revolution. And of course, that crackdown on crime in Chongqing we mentioned, the so-called Smash the Black campaign. Have you seen anything been said about that recently?
Oh, sure. I've seen a lot of posts on this, and quite a few seem to feel that Bo went too far. Now, of course, most of these comments were made a couple of days ago and have disappeared at this stage. But just to give you some context, here are a couple of posts I found in the past few days. I knew from early on that he would get into trouble in the end. After all, look at what he did in Chongqing. He tried to use gangster methods to crack down on the mafia, and this was obviously a serious breach of the law. And this poster, 卡巴斯基坦, has this. In my opinion, it's okay to push political propaganda, but is it necessary to go this far? I can imagine that every time you turn on the TV, all you find is revolutionary red songs. I think this kind of overkill is a little too much. And then we have this poster from iPhone.com who says, "As far as I can see, what Bo has done in Chongqing is try to achieve personal political goals rather than really do practical things for the locals. And obviously the price he has had to pay for this behavior is high, and now the news has proved it."